Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Toolbox Podcast, your home for fitness, tech, finance, and anything else that we find interesting. I'm Scott Hacker. That's Ryan Fossage. Thanks for taking the time to listen today, everyone.
Yeah, man. How's it going? First full week of the new year. What's been on the radar?
Yes, I'm going to hit you with a fitness one this time around.
Oh,
So,
okay.
some of the listeners may not know yet. I'm very, very into cardio, running. I used to do triathlons, all that. Now that I got the kids,
Ironman's right.
yep. Haven't done those since I had the kids, but running is kind of the principal function now. And when I was in my 20s, I never got what they call like repetitive stress injuries. I never got them ever, like
Okay.
once, even doing freaking Ironmans. The moment I turned 30, like every 6 to 9 months, it's a shin splint, it's a plantar fasciitis flare up, it's an IT band thing, and like I don't have the free time I used to. I'm not quite as religious about the foam rolling and the prehab and the stretching, but I
Sure.
have to imagine on the continuum, I'm pretty good about it. And I just had, a plantar fasciitis thing flare up early December out of nowhere. Like I was finally getting in really good shape again, kind of riding the train. You know how you kind of get the you get in a good one. And I
Yeah.
was like, damn it! I was so pissed. Like I had just cranked out, a pretty decent time considering my current level of fitness. And I've been battling it all December. And I typically take the whole time off between Christmas and New Year's, and I did that. And this is my first week back running, and like I'm running slow. I'm not doing any speed work, and I'm doing the same volume I was doing before I got hurt. But you can just tell, like you just know you know it's not right, but it doesn't hurt. Like, have you ever had that feeling when you lift, but like, it's like I know for a fact it does not feel the same as my right foot or my right ankle. It is clearly
Yeah.
not right, but it doesn't hurt. So like I have this eternal battle where I'm like, am I just effing myself by just continuing to hurt this thing? I need to fix it, but that's the good news is at least I'm back to running, getting back to fitness, and getting the that morning hit of dopamine that I need to get the day started.
Dude, we're all dopa monsters, and I totally relate to wanting to get my fix of dopamine. Mine's not in the form of running; it's in the form of lifting, which ironically enough, you got me involved with 17 years ago,
Yeah, I know, right?
when we were in high school. So folks at home can probably do the math. But yeah, man, that really sucks. And it's kind of been something that's been plaguing you for a while now. Like I know there's been numerous times where you've had foot issues and you've had to back off right when you feel like you're starting to, make gains again. So I can't imagine how frustrating that is. So I definitely empathize with that frustration. That would really be aggravating.
Yeah, it's good to hit it again back in the new year. And my goal is I have a goal in my mind. I want to do the exact same workouts I did the week before my second kid was born last year. I want to be able to do that exact same workouts before he's one. So
What was the
that's my
workout?
current goal.
What
and
was the workout?
and well, I mean, on a macro level, it's mainly just getting 60 miles in at an 8 minute average pace in over a 5 days span. And right now,
Oh,
I'm kind of at about a 45 miles, so I got a little bit of building up to do. But it's all going to be it's all totally contingent on the repetitive stress injuries holding up. It's totally contingent on that. My engine can do it no problem. It's just the chassis and the engine's
all of the
fine.
other parts
It's
trying
the
to hang
chassis that
on.
I'm worried about.
What about doing something that's less impactful, like stair stepper? I know that's probably not going to give you the same sort of buzz, but even like cycling was something you were into, obviously doing the Ironmans. Does
Yeah.
that not scratch the itch as much as running for you?
I mean, cycle. The time of day I would have to work out makes cycling outdoors impossible. This time of
Sure.
year makes cycling outdoors impossible.
I
And
thought you had a
cycling,
thing in your basement where it was stationary, though.
oh, I do, and it's just miserable mental torture sitting on that thing for hours. like,
Okay.
like the whole time I was doing Ironmans, sitting on that thing for 2.5 hours, just blasting consistent wattage, watching movies and shows. It's miserable, you know. And interestingly enough, I went back to cycling briefly when this first acted up, and I just it was tweaking my ankle enough that I'm like, this isn't worth it. I'm just gonna shut it down and do some lifting for a few weeks, and it didn't burn me too bad, but No, it's super frustrating when that stuff happens because you and I are both huge fitness guys, and like if I don't exercise, I feel like everyone around me can tell I'm just a jerk and depressed, and I just don't have the spirit. Like I'm deep into the pool where I'm just addicted to it and I need to do it.
Yeah,
You know.
you feel better when you do it. You're a better version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's far fewer healthier things to be addicted to.
Oh
Put it that
God, I
way.
know, right? Yeah.
So maybe meditation would be the only other one, but man, let's not launch on that topic, but just briefly, I've tried meditation and I should probably do more of it because I find it really tough and really unenjoyable, which probably means I need more of it.
Yeah,
But I
fair.
just find it really tough and really unenjoyable.
I know. I had a brief phase where I would try to do the 5 minutes of just not thinking, and like it's impossible to go 6 seconds, let alone 5 minutes. And I the closest I'll get to that is occasionally I'll do like a no music or no podcast run occasionally,
Mm.
typically out of being forced. And I mean, when you're in the if you do it in the woods, I can maybe get there and kind of get it. But no,
Find some
I
zen.
that's something I've never gone into the deep end of the pool on. I feel like I do a really good job of exercise. With diet, it's okay if I don't do the mental health stuff. You can't peg out on all of them and still have time to maintain a job.
Totally agree. Like you can't do everything. Can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot into our topic for the day. Uh, Make it nice and eye poppy, real polarizing. But is social media this generation's asbestos? I pose that question to you, and let's just get some initial reactions, and then I got some graphs and some other numbers pulled up that
Yeah.
we can pick at. But hit me with your first thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, it's funny. I thought you were to segue earlier when we mentioned dopamine because like I was like that perfectly ties into this topic, but you got me going on fitness and I wasn't going to shut up about that until I was forced. So yeah. I mean, social media. The interesting thing about social media too is I feel like you and I are we're in our mid 30s. We are the like perfect age where I remember I was 15 and I remember I saw what Facebook was for the first time when I was
Yeah.
15, and I remember
Mhm.
back then it was just like writing on people's walls, and you took a digital camera out to then put your SD card in to upload the picture to your Facebook. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like the only friends I had were like the people in homeroom in my high school, you know, and it was just like and like we got to see. I don't know. It's just interesting. I feel like we got to see it go from that to being $1 trillion company that controls elections. but but in that time, what I think is so interesting is I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing how our age interlaced with the growth of that technology because I didn't get a smartphone until my last year of college, thank God. Um,
Mhm.
and I think the smartphone is what really turned it up to 11. I feel like when it was still desktop based, it wasn't quite as all encompassing as it is
Yeah, because no
now.
one wants to sit behind a desktop all day. You can't take it with you.
Yeah. But like I think the biggest thing for me with social media is as I've aged, I I simultaneously use it more and use it less. And what I mean by that is like I barely post anything ever. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
like the occasional Happy Mother's Day to my wife or the occasional my kid turned 3. Here's a cute pic. You know, but like I never post anything. And back in hell, I would say as recent as 20, I don't know, 16, 17, I would occasionally just post funny, witty, I think witty, things that were interesting and novel and pictures of random crap that I did. And I never post anything now. But at the same time, I scroll it's like a freaking like it's subconscious. You just get your phone out the second you have an instant of boredom, and you just go there. And I don't think I was
It's
doing
like a
that.
compulsion. It's like a
Yeah,
compulsion.
and what I think is the root of that is I just feel like as that I became a user in '05. It's kind of a weird way to word it, but I feel like when I became a user, I posted stuff all the time because my only friends were just random people I knew from high school and the occasional person from work. And
Right.
then and at that point, it wasn't all about signaling status and signaling wealth and signaling success. It was just, what dumb thing did you do last weekend? And like it was like a fun, and now every picture you see is just everybody's finely tuned perfect version of their perfect life, and it makes you not want to post anything unless if it's your proximity. Well, that's not a word. Unless if it's your facsimile of a perfect life that you can manifest and make into that shape. And that's where the anxiety really kicked in. I think was once it turned into less social and more
Right.
media. You know.
Yeah, it was actually social then. Like you were interacting with your real life network, and your real life network mimicked your online network more or less. And it was just a way for you guys to hang out when you had to go home for curfew,
Yeah.
as opposed to like being in each other's basements. But then, yeah, I think there was definitely at the tipping point with the smartphone. I agree with that. And then it sort of went from social media to just market in a different way of marketing.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the marketing angle is really there early on. At least I don't remember it as being as prevalent back in 2007, six.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I'm with you with them. Everyone using it to post their marketed version of their life. The comparison, like it's obviously easy to then make the next jump of then everyone's comparing yourself, your life, to the absolute peak moments of everyone else's life.
Yeah.
And while you have those peak moments, you're not sitting there looking at Instagram in one of those peak moments. So you're just getting this inundation of all of these people with all of this cool stuff going on while you're just sitting on the crap taking a dump.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not doing anything with my life, or I'm sitting at the airport waiting on a plane. Um,
Well,
so yeah, I think honestly we will look back 20, 30 years from now, I'm not sure when, and think why not. Well, I guess there's two things to kind of hold in the mind. Why did we let our kids have it? Because even as adults, I don't think we're great about it, but you can't necessarily, let adult or tell adults exactly what to do. Like, drinking alcohol, smoking, everyone at some point gets the right to make a decision for themselves on what they want in their life and what they don't. But I think we should think critically about what we do subject our kids to and what we do permit them to see and view and interact with. And I think there's countries taking some steps in that direction. I believe it's Australia who is actually setting limits on kid and teen use of social media. They might be banning it outright. I should research that real quick. Um,
One spin on this that I think you might find interesting to kind of tie this back to the business side of things is I've seen a lot of marketing recently, not marketing, but I've seen a lot of posts and articles about how little Gen Z is drinking.
yes, of all
Have you
people.
seen some of this about alcohol spend, the amount they're drinking?
Yeah, that's
I, I
popped up on several podcasts I listen to.
I'm gonna throw out a take here that I haven't heard yet, at least. I think a lot of that is because of social media. I when I
Really?
drink now, like I'm a big boy. I can handle a hangover. I can handle a stomach ache. Like I don't give a crap about the physical manifestation of the hangovers. The reason I don't, the reason I hate drinking is the anxiety that I get the next day. I mean, it is absolutely crippling. I feel terrible from like
Jeez.
a oh my god, what did I just do? How am I doing this? And I feel like that is just manifest from our intake of social media for the last 15 years. I mean, you and I had the occasional good time in high school and college, and afterward, yes, I was hungover, but it was like, oh god, I feel like crap. I'm tired and I have a headache and I don't want to eat. But now like okay, whatever. But I don't remember back then feeling like oh my god, what am I doing with my life? What's happening? And it's like I think now it's you wake up from that hangover and you scroll your phone out and all you see is all these people killing it, being successful, and you're like, oh my god, last night I was just getting drunk, blowing money, not being a responsible person, and
Okay.
I think that a lot of the reason they don't drink is that feeling is effing miserable. And if
Sure.
we grew up in it in a sense, but I feel like the smartphone didn't kick in until right at the tail end of college. At
Right,
least
I'd
at
agree.
least from being ubiquitous. But I feel like if you grew up with a smartphone in your hand from when you were 16, that anxiety bit of the hangover might have been the worst part ever since you started, and you probably deeply associate that with drinking. And another part too, when we were in college, again, thank God, there weren't everybody with phones everywhere.
Hmm.
Nowadays, every single person at any moment could take a video of you being a dumb drunken idiot.
Oh yeah. I
And
mean, I don't know how fraternities still exist. I
oh
don't
God,
think they
yeah.
will exist for long.
As fraternity people that got a lot of value from it, I'm shocked they still exist.
Yeah.
um, you know, and I agreed. And I feel like all of those things are actually contributing factors to why Gen Z doesn't drink nearly as much. It's fear of doing something stupid when you're drunk and the anxiety bit of the hangover.
Yeah, I've never really thought of it as from the anxiety bit, as in they see the opportunity cost of how they're spending their time, and if they're spending their time getting drunk, they're not progressing their lives in other realms. That's interesting. I never thought about it like that. I guess I never really given it much thought as to why Gen Z isn't drinking. I just know they're more risk averse, or at least in general terms. So I'm wondering, yeah,
Yeah,
interesting. So it sounds like you scroll a lot of content like hustle porn.
yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, what I find so interesting is like it just the ability of those companies to feed you the good stuff. It's wild. Like to bring this to current events briefly. TikTok right now, and the air quotes ban, which again terrible branding on the part of the Democrats. It's not a ban; they're just forcing them to divest it from a Chinese company into a United States company. Well, actually,
Hmm.
it could probably be a European company for all I know. But anyway, the forced divestment of TikTok, which is a big topic right now. I'm old enough that I never downloaded TikTok. I think our
Right.
cohort of millennials is just barely above when we downloaded that. But everything I hear about it is that it's basically just Instagram Reels just turned up to 11 and even better, which is probably a great reason not to download it.
Oh my
But I
God.
mean,
No way.
yeah, and when you think about it, you're like, I mean, it it's I don't know how someone is I don't know how someone is against. I have a hard time straw manning why someone is against forcing the divestiture from the Chinese from a Chinese company. I have a hard time straw man because steel manning. Sorry, I have a hard time with it
Mhm.
because it just seems so blatantly obvious that if a foreign adversary wanted to manipulate public perception in a foreign country, you could tune what the people are fed. It just seems so cleanly obvious
It's a
that I
Trojan
don't
horse. It's
that I
a
just don't
digital social Trojan horse.
and I just don't understand the people who are against it go the free speech route, and I just like use Instagram Reels, use Facebook Reels,
Like
like
an adult.
I I like do Snapchat. I mean it's like you have plenty of channels to have your exact free speech and literally do the exact same thing. Use YouTube Shorts. There's a million things you could a bunch of things you could do that is
Yeah,
the
there's
exact
alternatives.
same functionality. You know,
Well, the thing
and
that I've heard that makes that I will never download TikTok is when you do it, you agree to basically letting them record your reactions to the reel. So one, a Chinese company, aka the Chinese government, definitely has your facial signature in a database that they can access at any time now. And you're basically letting them download your whole persona of what you're into, even the subconscious parts of you that you don't even realize that you're into, the subconscious part of you on things that you like that you don't even realize that you like. And it's just super intrusive. And if they're doing that while you're on the app, it's a small code change for them to just be able to tap in and turn on that camera anytime they want and use it as their family's piece. So you're like inviting what could be extremely malicious, espionage level type recording
yeah.
into your home just with that. And so, I mean, that kind of probably borders on the line of conspiracy theory a bit, but
In fairness, I would feel nearly certain Meta does the exact same thing, but
oh yeah, no, that's true. That's fair. At
but
least at least they're a U.S. backed
yeah,
government, which probably makes them, one tick less, malevolent. But
yeah.
which is why I don't have Facebook on there. I do have Instagram, and I let myself watch it for 5 minutes a day. Like I have a 5 minute
Yeah.
cap on it, and then it will just shut down the app. And I could go change that pretty easily, but I don't because I'm usually thankful that it's over because I'm
Hmm.
like, ah, yeah, that wasn't really accomplishing much anyways.
What I try to do, I'll get to a serious point in a second, but what I try to do with Instagram is I try really hard to only click on like charts and graphs of finance
Uh,
knowledge and maps and data and interesting. I try so hard, and then
I
like
got an ad for you. It's basically Instagram of just visualizations of data. It's called Voroni, V
well,
O R O N O I.
I will
It's just
definitely use that. Yeah.
it's just data Instagram.
Well, okay, and the butt of the joke there was just that like occasionally they'll show some random picture of I don't know a bunch of good looking girls or some just like I don't know car or I don't I'm picking a bad example right now and like I swear that thing can tell if you glanced at it for a split second because 30 seconds later you get fed another picture of those exact people. It's just like my God, they track your eyes, you know. Um, but another thing that I think is interesting is at bottom, almost all of Meta's revenue is advertising. Okay,
Yeah,
and what I find interesting is it's not like advertising didn't exist in the 90s and 2000s, you know, and so party sits there and says, okay, so conceptually then let's just say if 80% of all the advertising dollars drifted from, magazines and radio and TV and if 80 let's just say 80% of that drifted from traditional pre-digital platforms into Meta and Google. What I
yeah.
find interesting is I'm sure in 1998 the entire advertising ecosystem combined didn't even touch the size of Meta or Alphabet, you know?
I
And
would say that's probably directionally correct.
okay, so then you sit there in my head I sit there and I think fundamentally this is just the you can make it on one hand, it's like, okay, this is just a replacement of magazines. And instead of when I'm bored at the doctor's office and I get fed with ads of, Joe Camel and deodorant and flipping through Sports Illustrated in 2001, I just get my phone out and I start scrolling and I just get fed random ads as I'm looking at articles or as I'm getting seeing posts to my friends. And then I'm like, that whole ecosystem supporting that, which was also ad supported, didn't even touch the aggregate size of the social media behemoths. And I do find that interesting. And I actually thought about this quite a bit before going into this podcast. I can't quite put my finger on what it is. I can make an argument that, it's just the capital of all the data centers and all the digital infrastructure and the upshot of integrating AI. And you can sit there and put my Silicon Valley hat on it. But I struggle to bridge the fundamental nature of how these are vehicles for advertising and channels for content delivery compared to the legacy version of that didn't even touch the market cap.
Are you just saying like the size is hard to get your mind around?
Yeah.
Or yeah, yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, I think also marketers realize that what a Facebook ad or a Google ad can do is just so much more targeted. You get such a better return on your investment and a return on your marketing dollars when you do advertise on those platforms because there's a persona and a profile built around you, which makes you more predisposed to click on certain types of ads that are going to be of interest of you, of course.
Hmm.
That sort of interaction, that sort of interplay doesn't exist in those old legacy advertising media types of traditional TV and also magazines and stuff like that. That feedback loop is what makes, I think, it so much more valuable, which just has increased corporations and people's spend on marketing. And also, I think in conjunction with something you were kind of going down earlier with sort of the hustle porn, there's also just a lot of smaller companies vying for your attention that would never even approach trying to advertise in a magazine, or they would never even approach trying to advertise on traditional linear TV. But now they have a means to cost effectively target really niche audiences, like all of the fitness stuff, No one's advertising $10,000 Ironman bikes on
They are to me.
On CSI back
Yeah.
in 2007 on CBS. But now it's very easy to send out a real focused message around that to a targeted audience. So the platforms add a lot of value in that, and I think that's just attracted more capital, more investment over time, which is why you've seen that huge explosion of capital move towards marketing like that.
I mean, I do think we'd be remiss to not mention some of the positive side of social media. I definitely think it's unfair to totally paint a negative picture. The ability to
Absolutely.
maintain relationships over a distance, over time. I'm sure there's a lot of people that, well, there's a meme you always see online of how I'm still friends with Facebook with someone I met at a party once in 2007, which is totally true. And I actually find it interesting. It's like I was given this set of, let's call it, 20 characters between 27 and 2007 and 2009 that I have no interaction with whatsoever, but I just kind of randomly get to see how these people are doing still. It's like my little a looking glass into people that are particularly active online. But um, you know, I mentioned this a couple of shows ago, but like I do think that current social media is just I'm telling you, it's coalescing into, we live in a text-based, screen-based metaverse. Okay.
Yeah.
I do think that the rebrand to Meta maybe was a little bit early, maybe it was a little bit of an overshot, but it just can I'll die on this hill. It just does not seem to me like that big of a leap to eventually drift into the interactions we have, like you and I. We have a DM group with some of our other friends where we'll occasionally share memes and stuff like that. It just doesn't feel like that big of a leap to me that eventually that drifts into three-dimensional. It
Hang
manifests
out.
itself in some kind of three-dimensional way.
I mean, would you, so like right now, we're sort of in a very light version of the metaverse. I can see you on my computer screen. You can see me. We're communicating. We're having a conversation. Do you think this would be better if we were in virtual reality goggles and we had tricked our brains into thinking that we're sitting in the same room at a table across from one another? And let's assume the fidelity and the resolution of what you're seeing is 80% of real life.
Mm-hmm.
Would that make this experience better, the same, or worse for you?
I think I would enjoy it more. I can't speak for the listeners, but like I remember, didn't Lex Friedman did an episode? This is a while back. He did an
Yeah, he
episode
did.
where, where it was just like the
It was
digital
him and Duff.
representation, and I remember being like, oh my god, dude, that's wild. How good it was. I think, again, I would get more enjoyment out of that, and I think it would make this feel even more personable. Like I watched a podcast this week of a group that they were in person doing it,
Hmm.
and it's just the subtle thing. It might be a 2% improvement, but you can just tell there's something about that, and it might only be a 1% instead of a 2% improvement if you can put if it goes into something more resembling a three-dimensional metaverse. But I think it just feels to me like I just can't imagine we're not ultimately going to drift into that. Professionally this week, I was on a call at one point where there were people in Saudi Arabia, there were people in China, there were people in the west coast of the U.S., and there was me, and it's like, and there were people. I think there were people in India as well on this call. It was one of the more global calls I've ever been on, and in a few of these different locations, there were people sitting in boardrooms, and I'm just sitting there in my head. I'm just like, it might be 5 years away. Hell, it might be 10 years away, but in time, we will all be sitting in a virtual boardroom. You know?
Yeah, I just wonder, does the does the substitute for the real thing, like obviously people want to be together, people want to congregate, people want to meet and talk, but by making it so easy to do that in a near real life way, does it water down the experience? And ultimately, are we just moving further and further away from what we truly seek, which is that actual in person meeting? So, like, like, if it weren't for technology, we wouldn't be able to do this. But if we really wanted to do this and create a podcast with you and me, then would one of us then make the decision just to actually, would we even have moved away from our homes and to begin with? Like if seeing each other was so important and doing stuff like this was so important, would we still be making the decision to live in different towns? Maybe yes, maybe no. But it just, I totally agree with you. I don't know what side of the coin I come down. Is technology enabling us to be closer together, or is it just giving us this sort of impression that we are and just allowing us to take our physical lives further and further away more easily, watering down the experience when really 100 years ago, in order to do anything like this, we'd all have to be together physically.
I mean, I would make the argument that it's what's the word I'm looking at? Substrate independent to channel my inner philosophy major there. I would argue it's substrate independent. I think it's about the content of the communication. I mean there's people today that literally fall in love with people through text messages. Okay, they never hear their voice, and in 1890 there were people that were doing that with freaking mail and letters. You know what I mean? I think if people are vulnerable and share how they feel about things, I don't think it necessarily matters what the form factor of the communication is. I think it's of course made easier through in person's obviously the easiest, but what I and also we'd probably be remiss if we didn't mention LinkedIn. I think that's a worthwhile
Yeah.
bit of the social media ecosystem that often doesn't get characterized as social media. But professionally, I've always had a career in sales, you know, and what I've found is COVID did something interesting where literally in February of 2020, okay, like that's not like in February of 2020, if I were to set up a video call with somebody, they'd be like, "Really? Oh, sure, I guess," you know. And like April of 2020, want to do a video call? Sure, let's do it, you know. And it has enabled me to build relationships with people through video calls. There are people I've known for years now that I've never met in person that I feel like I have a good relationship with professionally. And these are things that would it have been possible over phone calls and email? Sure. But, you know, these innovations like this, I think are incredibly meaningful in enabling people to do, you know, business at scale. We're drifting a little bit away from social media, but like LinkedIn, to try to swing it back to social media a little bit. I mean, LinkedIn's another killer example. LinkedIn's an interesting test case because I find LinkedIn interesting because of the whole don't put politics on LinkedIn, or the whole put this on Facebook. You know, you can see it cracking, but LinkedIn still overwhelmingly you don't see people. I do think it's drifting in the direction, but overwhelmingly you still don't see many people putting, you know, MAGA 2024, you know,
Yeah.
Biden's economy. Like you don't really see any of that on. You see some of it, and you see relatively little. I mean, you see a fair amount of, oh, check out my kid. I'm really proud of them graduating high school, and some of that's like, okay, it's drifting a little bit, but okay. It's interesting the social pressure. Social pressure can be maintained digitally as well. I think when people's better way of looking at this, a lot of the social media is people talk about bots and anonymity and having people act like they're crazy people. I think that's the one unique feature of LinkedIn where if you go out there and say something, it's you going out there and saying it. It's not, you know, it's, you know, not egg shape, you know, at Biden's an idiot 2028, you know, it just randomly saying crap. It's you with your professional background, where you work. And I think it really illustrates that in an environment where it's not all anonymous and there's proof of human, people can act in a much more, let's say, civil is probably a dramatic way to word that, but in a much less tribal manner.
They act like they're actually interacting in person, because you don't get a lot of that polarizing tribalism talk if you're just out in public walking around. If you just strike up a conversation with a person on a plane, they don't immediately just start ramming politics down your throat like you might see on certain platforms. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm kind of curious to know how LinkedIn has been able to maintain that. Do they just do such a good job with their, initial signups that they verify people and they prevent bots from even creeping in? And if that's the case, then it seems like that should be very replicable across other platforms, which kind of makes you scratch your head as to why that hasn't been adopted on other platforms.
What I would think is that I don't think LinkedIn monetizes people who have followers.
Uh,
So I think what it is that on Facebook and Instagram, the bot nature and the accumulating followers such that you get paid $1 million a post, I don't think that fundamentally exists
there's not that incentive
on
there.
on LinkedIn, and I think that might be a core function of it, and also like what necessarily is a bot really trying to do on there? Ginning up a bunch of people to get reactive on LinkedIn, like what is that really going to functionally accomplish? Um, one thing you hear about occasionally in crypto blockchain world, you catch an article occasionally about like proof of human or that's something with like I saw an article recently about how Meta um, I saw an article recently about how Meta had just openly fake people acting as AIs on the platform and just seeing what the hell happened, you know. And I read an article about this, and you know, I think I found that very interesting. The notion that you could just flood the zone on some of these platforms with artificial people that um, react and respond as AIs that you think are real the whole time. And then, like, how do you do kind of proof of human exercise? Is it eyeball scans? Is it thumbprints? Is it, I don't know. But it makes me wonder that is there going to be an evolution in social media where there's like some form of verified real human app that might tone down a lot of the anonymity and bot language that I think fuels most of the fire, that kind of gets you something that's non-professional but more resembling of the type of content you see on LinkedIn. I feel like that'd be a reasonably open lane, but I don't think that's a thing right now.
No, and probably don't think the incentives are there for people to align around that. I think to your point, discontent, tribalism equals dollar signs at the end of the day. It equals eyeballs. It equals attention. Yeah, and I think maybe for a brief moment, I thought Musk might try some of those ideas to make Twitter more like regular human interactions, where you have those social pressures to confine to a set of social rules and social norms without the wild outlier type interactions. But I think he embraces those wild outlier interactions. So I don't think that's going to be the platform where that happens. And that's fine. That's his platform. But yeah, your LinkedIn is an interesting one. I think there's some lessons to be learned from LinkedIn, and I think probably a lot of the other platforms could be healthier if they did that. But again, just the incentives probably aren't there.
What's interesting about X is I was a Twitter user, let's call it between 2012 and 16 ish. It was the first it was the first app I just quit. You know,
Yeah,
um, I
I
was
never
just like
had it.
I was just like, you know what? It was the first one I and I left it long before Musk bought it. And I think when we all look back on it, it's going to basically play out that Musk just bought Twitter to feed data into XAI to give it proprietary data of human communication. I think when it's all said and done, that's probably going to be why that happened. I struggle to rationalize why else he would do that. I heard an interesting podcast. I heard an interesting take on a podcast this morning when I was running that I thought was interesting, which was feeding into the oligarch theme of a couple of shows ago. We'll have Musk buy TikTok and merge it with X, and now that he's buddies with the guy in charge, but No, I don't know. It's hard. I still struggle with the whole why on the Twitter conversion to X. I think there might have been a master plan there to turn it into like China has WeChat, which is kind of like their everything app that you can do payments on and all that. I think there was the vision there, and he made. I mean, the thing too that everybody gives him a hard time about X. It's like, okay, who cares? You made one stupid decision. You still made $200 billion with your Tesla stock. Like, who gives a crap if the X thing was ended up being stupid and you just did it wrong? Like, who cares? I
Well, I mean, like on a P&L level, yeah, probably didn't look like the best business move. But on a cultural, social influence level, which you can't model, well, maybe you can monetize that, or you
yeah.
can put a dollar figure to that to some level. But I don't know if he's such a loser with his Twitter purchase, because I mean, I think in a large part, him having Twitter helped influence part of the election,
Oh God,
and
100%. Yeah.
so I mean, like, he might be playing chess, but everyone's still thinking about the rules of checkers in that regard. So, like, I don't think you can boil down that decision to buy it simply to just, is it something that's going to make him money in the long run? I don't think,
Yeah.
and it might with the influence that it projects, and it has, but that's going to be really hard to tease out like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, and he didn't buy Twitter with 44 billion of his own money. You know, I think 6 billion of it was his money, and the rest of it was investors that just again probably joined because he's like, if you want in on the SpaceX around, you're going to give me freaking money to buy Twitter. I'm sure that's how it probably played out.
Yeah, it
And
might be ones against his Tesla stock. I don't.
what
We don't do much research. We're not. This isn't a. I'll jump on a tangent. The guy from Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson, I really like something he said about podcasts. And I agree with him. He's like, at first when I started podcasting, I was trying to be like an indexer of facts, and then just trying to index the facts most efficiently as possible. And he's like, I realized that this job is about being a vibe architect. Like, you're trying to, no one is going to get as much value from just a dissertation of facts as you would from like a true conversation that has a vibe, that has a flow to it around a certain topic. And it's okay, like, if you're not just nailed in on facts the whole time, you're pulling these ideas out and you're sort of shaping them and playing with them real time with an audience sort of watching. I was like, that's a really cool sort of way to frame that, and to think about what this role is, or at least one way to think about it. And I subscribe to that because it's also lower effort.
I know, right? You know, to keep going on X, one thing that I found so interesting is the stickiness of some of these social media platforms. You know what I mean? Like when Musk bought Twitter, converted it to the name X. Like, first off, that's a huge rebrand, which I thought that would have some kind of implication. And then, obviously fires a bunch of the staff, runs it lean and mean. A lot of the content moderation goes away. Um, a lot of the what's this called, back end goes away. Sales of ads go away. And then that was right around when Meta had Threads come out, which is the literal exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like there is absolutely no difference in the like what you can do on these platforms. And it just shocked me how everybody complains all the time about how, the ads on X and the content on it, and it's like everyone still uses it. Like it just shocked me that like it shocked me how sticky it was after that much of a seismic shift in the platform. It still didn't meaningfully, I think, drift people into Threads. I don't think, and that just really surprised me because, like, I said this earlier with TikTok, which was like Instagram Reels is basically the same freaking thing. Like,
Yep.
don't give me the free speech argument. You could post these exact same short form videos on a platform and it make the exact same thing. Like the only thing you're giving up is just the inertia you have of the followers you developed, which is probably, in fairness, hard to just immediately transition over.
Sure.
I mean, the stickiness goes back to my comment earlier about how I'm still friends with Facebook people I haven't talked to in 18 years, just because I met them once at a party when I was in high school. And
Is
how
that really
and
doing anything to make your life better, though? I mean,
oh, not at all. No, I mean, at any moment I could have unfriended these people. You just get too lazy. I mean, well, why don't you unsubscribe from every single junk email you get? Like I'm reasonably good about it, but unless if they catch me in a moment where I have 5 seconds to do it and I'm thinking about it, I don't do it. You
Sure.
know, it's just humans. We just get so used to, oh yeah, I get a notification once a day from this stupid app I don't use anymore. I just delete it. It's like we just get so used to, well, why don't you unsubscribe from it and you never get it again? Well, that takes 3 clicks instead of deleting it, which is 1 click. You know,
Yeah,
and
we can cover up and excuse a lot of things. We can do mental gymnastics to get around having to put forth effort.
I think the biggest thing with me with social media, I don't have notifications on it. So I turned off notifications for all my social media. I still check them all the time. Like I'm still a mid-30s millennial addict. I still check them all the time, but I don't have the notifications on,
Yeah.
because I just can't handle my line of work is very inundated with email and text notifications. I just literally can't psychologically handle other sources of notifications.
No, I think that's smart. I have the same thing. Like there's
Yeah.
no notifications. Don't want the interruptions. And that you might not think it's interrupting you, but it's definitely interrupting you, whether you realize it or not. It's taking your
Oh
brain
yeah.
off task even if it's a small diversion of your attention over there.
Yeah, I mean, I get very little. Again, the nature of my work, I get very, very little deep work opportunities. Like it's wild if 10 minutes go by where there isn't like an, oh crap, what just happened? Let me react to that. So like, I am all over the place during the day, and again, I just can't handle that additional source which again, taking this thing all the way back to the beginning of the conversation here about just being anxiety riddled because of these things, and being obsessed with wanting to be the not everyone can be in the top 1%. That's actually mathematically accurate.
Yeah, that's true. I got a question for you, getting back to and kind of bringing home this social media topic. You got a couple little ones at home. They're still some years away from having a phone, but what's your stance on what you're going to permit in your household for your kids when it comes to this topic?
I'm putting blind faith in society that by the time they're 10, we have this figured out and it's banned.
Okay, what if that doesn't happen? What's your plan B?
Well, it's a collective action problem where everyone agrees if no one gave preteens phones, it's better. But if everyone has them and your kid is the one without them, that's worse for your kid than if no one had them.
Okay.
So, so it's basically, well, it's like workers going on strike at a factory. It's like all the workers will win if you band together, but if none of you band together, it's advantageous to just keep working. So I hate to say it, I feel like unless if like if there's like if in sign up for sixth grade there's some like, okay, parents vote, and if the majority vote is no phones, we're gonna make them put phones in bags before they walk into the school. Hell yeah, I'm gonna vote for that.
Hmm.
But unless if that happens and they're banned, I'm gonna let them have it. You know, I feel like the ost- ostracization, that can't be a word. I feel like being ostracized by not having it,
Yeah.
um, probably probably outweighs it, and I don't know, man. It's loaded. You just think back to when you're that age, man, and you think back when you're that age, and like the dumb little stuff sticks with you. It sticks with you for a long time, and could you make an argument that not having a cell phone and not having social media is better for you psychologically? I can make that argument. But if you're 14, 15, 16 and feeling left out because you don't have it and everybody's having these, inside jokes for things online and you're not in it, that might stick with you in a long run way that's challenging to capture.
Hmm.
So I if every sounds terrible. If everyone's doing it, I'm gonna let my kid do it. But I will more than happily vote to not let them do it.
Thoughtful.
How's
That,
that for a
that,
non?
that
How's
would,
that for a non-answer?
that would, yeah. As a non-parent that might become a parent, yeah, I don't look forward to having to navigate this particular topic with any future children I may or may not have. I can't imagine. I
I mean,
mean, yeah. It
I
feels like a nightmare. This probably feels like one of the, as someone that isn't a parent, this would feel like one of the top five topics that I would dread most about being a parent.
well, we'll say parenting for another show, but there's plenty of things that outweigh the dread of those five things. Um,
Okay,
but
cool.
but
I think actually maybe.
but like but what I was gonna say was if you, I hate to keep being the metaverse guy. I need to move off of this. But like you think of the games kids have right now, Roblox and Minecraft and stuff. It just feels. I keep saying this. I keep saying this. I need to get over it. But like 5 years from now, there's no reason to believe the headsets aren't going to get smaller and lighter and easier to use and a broader set of apps on them. I see a world where my 10-year-old is sitting in his room in hanging out with his friend at his house 5 miles away, who has his headset on, playing some kind of game together in some kind of virtual world, going like walking in a virtual world to meet other friends, and I just see it transitioning to something like that in lieu of kind of the the again the two-dimensional screen version it is now. I just foresee that being likely, and it'll start with kids that age and they get used to it, and then that'll eventually trickle up into the corporate world, and by the time we're 70 we might get forced into a meeting with avatars. But um, you know
That kind of just brings, okay, if you think about that, and social media takes on that metaverse element, and most of social media, like we talked about earlier, doesn't play by the same in-person rule set that we would have if we were interacting human to human. What if your kid's like in this virtual reality metaverse realm and he's just getting the ever living shit kicked out of him in the metaverse? Like, yeah, obviously he's physically okay because it's not truly him, but the extension of him in his mind in the metaverse is just getting bullied and beat up. I
well,
think
I,
that
I think you're ultimately gonna have different personas in each of these separate metaverses. So your real world persona, that's kind of what, let's call that LinkedIn, where people know it's the real you. So you're in these said metaverse worlds. I think there's still going to be bots, but there's going to be real people who have their persona in this virtual metaverse. And I think as long as there's some mechanism or tool, it might be blockchain, it might be put whatever crypto buzzword you want to on it, but as long as there's some mechanism for validating that's a real person, a real persona in this world who is held accountable to their actions in some way, shape, or form, I think that will maintain some degree of civility. That when you run
okay.
into Carrot Juice 19 again, um, it's the same Carrot Juice 19 that did this other thing. I think AI bots will probably flood these because it just makes perfect, obvious, easy sense. But um, there's still, as long as there's still some degree of accountability held to the persona for subsequent actions. I don't think it matters that it's a different name or if it's a different persona in each of these different worlds. I think that accountability thing is probably what keeps things more civil. But yeah, I mean, if you could just
See,
make 15 bots, if you could just make 15 bots that just keep killing someone's character or something with a different name each time, you don't know who's gonna. Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying, but I'm putting some blind faith in some type of verification, blockchain, whatever you want to use, guardrails, in maintaining some kind of civility there.
well, I think your faith is higher than mine, but I hope you're right.
No,
Let's bring this home one. Let's bring this one home, I think.
well, to bring it home, I think the initial characterization of is that our generation's asbestos. I think we are all going to look back and be like, "Oh my God, this was stupid." But I don't think there's going to be the whole I bought a house with asbestos, rip it out, because there's nothing you can do about it. So I think the ship has sailed. It's not like there's any kind of remediation you can necessarily do. But I think on net, I do think it's been a positive to civilization. I'm not afraid to say that out loud. I just think some of the what's the word? I'm drawing a blank on my economics term there, but some of the downstream consequences we didn't expect, And I think slowly but surely we're all realizing that and gonna drift it into minimizing some of that downside.
Yeah, that I hope we do kind of shore up some of the weaker points of social media and find ways to have it create fewer negative externalities. But
Well, hey,
all right, man, we'll
I'm
catch you next time. See ya.
all right. I'll see you.